Well, I guess I'm going to say hi. We're going to welcome you. Nancy, we're glad to have you. It's an honor to have you here at Salem State University. We have a small music department, growing music department, and we have a couple of music majors. Who are the music majors in the room? So just a handful, but this course is called Women in Music, and it's open to all the students. And it's the first time the course has been taught. So we're learning as we go along. We're all learning as we go along, especially me. And they've been kind enough to put up with me. And we've been talking about a lot of women who are, need more mention in music history. So Nancy Hildegarde, I met her while she was playing with my good friend and wonderful saxophone player, Mark Early over there. Thank you, Mark. Mark went out to Rockport, drove out to Rockport early this morning after playing very late at night. I know firsthand because I was there. And he went out and picked up Nancy and was kind enough to bring her out here. So I'm thankful for Mark. I met Nancy. She was playing a gig with Mark. She was up on stage. She had a zillion songs that she was singing, all memorized. She had her trumpet with her, playing these wonderful trumpet solos, and I was very impressed. And I thought it would be really fitting to bring Nancy in because she goes back a ways.
You can pass that around.
Yeah.
Look at that.
We have a couple of CDs.
Open it up inside. Let's see the songs.
I'm just going to pass around her CDs. You can take it, just going to pass them around the room. We've recently talked to a couple of ladies who are in the jazz world right now, but they're young, and they've been through a little bit of different experiences than you've been through.
Well, shall I tell my age now?
Would you like to?
Of course.
Okay.
I just started telling it. I'll be 88 next week, or 2 weeks.
88?
Yeah.
Wow. You're looking good.
So I've been around a while.
So what I found really impressive about Nancy is that just her knowledge of music. It's amazing. It completely stayed with you. And I went over to her house, and she had stacks and stacks of index cards, and every one of them had the lyrics to a tune on them. And every week she shuffles the cards, and she decides what she's going to do, and she brings those lyrics out. And she never really read them. She just uses them as reference. It's pretty impressive. She knows about 1 million more songs than I do, and is still active in the music world, which is highly unusual, especially at this young age. So we're honored to have you here, and we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say. And there you have it.
And mention what I give the men
What?
before they play. They have a card with the lineup.
Okay, all right. Now she gives out the set list of everything she's going to play before the gig with the keys next to the tunes. And they better know the tunes. Because I've seen what happens when they don't.
Well, I just found out that they're not reading the things on the left-hand side, the instructions.
Oh.
Because they can't see.
Maybe they
They're
can't
so
read.
old. They're so old. Could you turn me, Tom, so that I'm...
Sure, absolutely. Tell me when.
A little more.
That good?
Fine, yeah. Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, it's so nice to see you all. I agreed to this. And I didn't know that it was in Salem, which is very difficult to find from Rockport. In fact, I got lost one time. But I asked Tom, well, what emphasis do you want? And he said, well, my experiences and attitudes toward women and then and now, what the difference is, and some of my experiences. So I'm going to, I hope I don't bore you. Have you got a clock there? How much time do I have?
You've got...
Give me a 5-minute warning.
Yeah, I'll give you 5 minutes.
All right.
Okay, 30, 40 minutes. You can go as long, a half hour, whatever you want. We'll have a little activity after class which will involve you in, and so take your time, and I'll give you 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
If you start running on too long.
You give me 5 minutes at the end.
Warning, I'll give you a warning.
All right, good.
I'll make an obnoxious noise or something like that.
Well, the minute you start looking bored, I'll change my tactics.
That'll be about 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm Nancy Hildegarde Brown Pratt Ruley. Brown was the maiden name. Hildegarde is my middle name, so I went Nancy Hildegarde is my professional name. Pratt is one of my husbands. I'm a widow twice. Pratt and Ruley is the last husband that died. So, and I'm living alone very happily. No interest in anything, just living it. I tell you, it's great, girls. It's great. Okay, I was conceived on the banks of the Mississippi River. You can believe that. Can you picture it? Mississippi down below, Quincy, Illinois, up on the bluffs, Calliope coming down the Mississippi, playing their tunes, their Dixieland tunes and everything. Well, that's where I was conceived. My father was a minister, and he had it with my mother, who was the organist, and they had turtle soup that day. They caught a turtle in the Mississippi River. So I didn't know turtle was an aphrodisiac, so fellows, that's a new one. Anyway, so I was raised there, and Daddy started me he had a church in Illinois, but then he went to Iowa to get a different church. He was in the Baptist religion, not the evangelical Baptist, but the regular Baptist. And so he had to get his own church. So he found one in Iowa. And that's where he started me off on trumpet at the age of 8. And I had to practice every day. If I practiced every day and was a good girl, Daddy would let me stand up. Open that up. That's what you're supposed to see.
The different songs on there?
Daddy would let me stand up in the balcony. And I could play on Easter, Christ the Lord is risen today. Da 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 da. And Christ, let's see, there's a trumpet.
Just played it on Sunday.
Da 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 da. Oh, that's God of our fathers. You ever play that one, Tom?
All the time.
Beautiful. Well, so I guess I'm a showman. I'm my father's daughter. He was a cowboy preacher. He was a cowboy before he became a minister. In fact, he was dying of tuberculosis, and his mother sent him from Michigan out to Colorado to save his life, which he did. She did. And he became a minister, and he came back to Michigan and used to use his lariat on stage and shoot his 6-shooter off on stage. The cowboy preacher it was called. So I think I am taking after him, my father, because I love show business. I didn't turn my thing on. Daddy taught me how to transpose. I led the singing, the hymns in the church. And so I learned how to transpose. I learned how to read. I used to give speeches to the BYPU. Now that stands for Baptist Young People's Union. So I'd speak to them about Fanny Cosby, who wrote hymns. I'd play the hymn and talked about her, and then I'd say that lead them in singing. So that's the way I started. Then in Iowa, we had a band, high school band, grade school. Before high school, what's it called? Middle school? Mm-hmm. Middle school band. And the fellow that was the head of the band playing trumpet was George Atkinson. My God, he was cute. He had pimples all over his face, but I didn't see that. He was absolutely gorgeous. And my desire, my full desire, was to sit next to George Atkinson and play the trumpet. George would never speak to me, so I worked and worked and worked for 3 or 4 years. I finally got myself up next to George. One day, he wouldn't speak to me. We'd shuffle the music. And one day, he turned to me, he said, "Nancy, you going to the movies?" I thought, "Oh, golly gee, He's asking you to go to the movies with him. No, why, George? What did you want? Well, I don't know. I saw you picking your seat. That was my introduction to George Atkinson. That was my thrill. Then Daddy got a church in Connecticut, and we left the Middle West, headed over to Connecticut, and was in New Milford, Connecticut, and that's where I really led the singing in the church. And Daddy noticed one day, he said, "There's so many old ladies that come every Sunday to church." He said, "I don't know what it is." Finally, he asked one of the old ladies, he said, what's old like me? He said, "What, you come here to hear my preaching?" Thinking that she would give him a good word. And she said, "Yes, we can't hear anything all week long, but on Sundays we can hear Nancy." So I played. It was hard to find a place to practice anywhere. In Connecticut, I would stay up in the hills by the barn and play in the Berkshire Mountains, the foothills of the Berkshires, and the sound would. Maybe that's why I have a huge sound now, or at least I did before I got so darn old. Used to go out over the whole area, and beautiful sound, beautiful sound. Then in the summertime, I'd go to New York City, and I went to Juilliard College, Juilliard School of Music, and I got the Vacchiano, who was the lead, the principal soloist for 30-some years with the New York Philharmonic, was interested in me, so he taught me. And he said, "What do you want to do in the future? You want to teach?" And I said, "No, I don't want to teach. I want to perform." And he said, "Well, I don't know what it would be for you to do." So I thought, well, I'll try to get into the symphony, at least talk about it. The word was that they're not taking women in the symphony. New York Philharmonic didn't take women until recently. So I thought, well, what else can I go into? So I went over to 802, local 802, and they put me through my rigors. They, about 5 or 6 old guys there, wanted to hear this young girl play. By that time I was about 19, and wanted to hear me play. So I passed my test. I became 802. But I gave up. I went on the union floor thinking that I would get some gigs. No, not a thing. No man approached me except to talk about my waist and my appearance, and I mean, they were terrible. All of them came on to me because at that time I was quite attractive, and they came on to me. So I decided, well, this is terrible. I've got to go do something else. So I tried out for Miss Subway of New York City, failed on that, became a photographic model, did all right, but that was a lot of walking. Worked for a while with Glamour magazine in the merchandise department. That was okay, but I was kind of upset with the falseness of the whole thing. Their whole attitude was to make clothes that became outdated soon. You know, change the clothes. So I didn't like that. Having been born in the Depression area, I've made things do. The motto that I grew up with was use it once, use it twice. Let's see. I forgot it. I'll have to think. Also tried the Miss America band. Bess Meyerson was a flute player, and she won Miss America. And we had several rehearsals, but then that went the road of most all bands. especially women's bands. Then I tried out for television, and I played with a combo on television. I had 4 men, and tried out for a show that was called Shop, Look, and Listen. In fact, I named it myself. And it was where we had merchandise, and people would, it was very cumbersome. It was the first shopping show ever. Shop, Look, and Listen, WTV in 1949. And my downfall was when the perfume that we give to the people when they buy something spilled in the studio. I said, oh, that's a horrible odor. Oh, and it went out over the air. And of course I got fired. Then I became a guide at Rockefeller Center. And that lasted about 3 years. That was, again, a lot of walking. And in the meantime, I was still using the trumpet player. I used Reinhardt, who had the plastic mouthpiece.
Yeah.
Do you remember him?
Yeah, Doc Reinhardt.
Well, I was in Downbeat promoting Reinhardt, promoting the mouthpiece, glass mouthpiece. So finally, I think my parents said, that's enough, you go to college. So I went to Antioch College for a year and a half. And the thing that stopped that, well, while I was there, I played in the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. The trombone player and I would hitchhike to Springfield once a week. Imagine hitchhiking. That was in about 1946. You could hitchhike then without getting raped. So while I was there, I wasn't too happy, but I kept studying. And I got a letter from Phil Spitalny. Have you ever heard of Phil Spitalny? It was an all-girl orchestra, and they had Vivian and her magic violin. You remember Phil Spitalny? Oh, that was the ultimate. I mean, they just...
How do you spell that?
P-H-I-L, Spitalny, S is in Sam, P is in Peter, I-T-A-L-N-Y, Spitalny, A-L-N-Y. And he asked that I join him in Canada. And I thought, I don't want to be with a group like that, with a magic violin. So I went back to New York City, very upset, very disturbed, not knowing what to do. My sister heard about the International Sweethearts of Rhythm. International Sweethearts of Rhythm. I'd never heard of them before. Come to find out, I found out when I first joined them, was that it was a group, black girls, mixture, Cuban black, white black, just all mixtures and all. That's why they call it international. Chinese, there was a black girl who was Chinese, and they didn't call them black then, they called them colored. So I joined the International Sweethearts of Rhythm. And the stipulation was, if you join, you don't let anyone know that you're white. We're going down south, we're playing down south, and we play for only Southern people. You drink out of the water fountains that say colored. You go to the bathrooms that say colored. So I had to change my mindset and be colored. And I felt so sorry for the way they lived down there. And we weren't allowed in the hotels. We were allowed only in the black. I keep saying black because that's what you say now. Only allowed in the colored hotels. So some of these run-down hotels, pretty bad. Or we would stay in the homes, the local homes, the sweet, sweet people there down south. And I kept a notebook on it, which I gave to a girl when I got back to New York City, thinking that she was going to write up my story, but she disappeared with my notebook. So I had all of this, I had all the towns that we went to, and of course I was worried all the time that somebody would discover that I was white. They discovered that one girl was white, part white, or all white. they asked to see her parents' picture. I mean, these horrible, horrible people. And she showed them the picture of her parents. They said, "You're white." She went to jail. She was in jail for 3 days. International sweetheart. So I was afraid that that would happen to me. I'm sure my parents didn't know the danger that I was going through. It was dangerous. Can you imagine? This is before any of the marches. This was when it was rife with hate down there for the colored people. It was terrible. And I was raised to not feel that way. So it really bothered me. The one thing that stands out in my mind was I had an old beau named Al Graves. He went to Dartmouth, and white guy. And he came one night to hear me play with a band. And the whole family sat up above. Of course, the whites would be up above, and we were down below playing. And I could still see them sitting up there with a look on their face. Why is she doing this? What is she doing, you know? I was so happy for the experience. They played jazz, they were as well known as Duke Ellington, as Count Basie. We were so famous. The first gig I had, I ended up signing autographs at the Apollo Theater. You know the Apollo Theater in New York City? That was our first gig. The second gig was Howard University in Washington, D.C. That was the next week. Signing autographs, and I thought, well, this isn't bad. This is this is great. I didn't really know that you had to go through hell before you started signing autographs. The men used to love to tease me, the black men, the colored men. And when I'd go to the ladies' room, they'd feel my hair. My hair was black at the time. And I wore makeup, very Max Factor makeup, very light, so that I looked as though I were white and black. The girls would disappear on the after the gigs down south, and I didn't know what happened to them. They would disappear, and the halls of the hotel would smell of this horrible odor. Of course, I was so naive, I didn't know it was ganja. I didn't know anything about that. Also, one time, well, the girls would disappear, but I would go to the Singer Sewing Machine Company. I would rent a sewing machine and make clothes. Make extra money. Oh, I was such a good girl. I learned a few things. Backstage sax player with Duke Ellington. Hey, Nancy, and some girls from Sweethearts of Rhythm were standing around because they love to tease me. They tease me like mad. He said, "Hey, Nancy, come to my room." He says, "I've got some chocolate candy there I'd like to have you try. Would you like to come?" The girls started laughing uproariously, and I thought, what in the world are they laughing at? What's so funny about chocolate candy? And I thought, well, I just won't go. You remember the plastic mouthpiece? Well, I was still playing the plastic mouthpiece. And it started blisters. We had a big gig one night, blisters all around. So the girl said, "Hey, Nancy, Louis," we were in Chicago at the time, and he said, they said, "Nancy, we'll go over to Bruno. Louis Armstrong's over there." I said, "You know him?" "Of course, Louis is a friend of ours." "Yeah." So they took me over there. Louis was, wow, he was there. He was so cute. And they introduced me to him, and they said, "Louis, would you loan her a mouthpiece?" "Sure." So he gave me one of his mouthpieces, and I tried it for a week, and then I mailed it back to him. But he filed it, the rim around, so that it was sharp. And the blisters with the bloody, oh, I was a mess for a while. It's a wonder that I could even play.
No wonder his lips look all cut up all the time.
Yeah, well, I play with the no pressure system, so aren't they beautiful? Let me see your lip. Oh, you can't see it. That's another thing. I've tried for years to raise a mustache because the guys say that you can play better with a mustache. So anyway, that was the end of the plastic mouthpiece.
It's a great shot of his face. Look at his lips. I don't know, can you shut the light up just for a second?
Oh, you got somebody up there?
I got Louis up there. I want them to see.
Oh, it's bloody.
Look at his, look how chewed up
Yeah.
his lips are.
That's
It's amazing
fine.
that he had a high register like that. Like he did.
Yeah, well, so I've sacrificed the high register.
You know,
I hit
you
a
don't
high-
need to chew up your.
I hit a high note the other night at Chianti's. By the way, I hope you all come to Chianti's.
When's the next time that you're there?
What
Well-
month is this? April?
Yeah, this
April
is it.
19th.
April 19th. Is it a Sunday?
Mark, yeah.
Yeah, so Nancy will be at Chianti. There's no cover charge. It's a restaurant. Any age can get in. It's a great.
It's a lounge, you said.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Can order a signature dish. It's supposed to be a wonderful Italian restaurant. So.
You know, my daughter goes there to hear jazz, and she buys tiramisu. That's all she gets. She gets water and a tiramisu,
Oh,
a cup
yeah.
of coffee. And if I'm there, I pay for it.
Well, I met some wonderful people, wonderful people. I met all the luminaries in the jazz world, and I didn't really appreciate it at the time, but now I'm beginning to appreciate it. But Leonard Feather became a very dear friend of mine. He's the jazz critic. Have you ever heard of Leonard
Oh, yeah.
Feather? No, you?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, jazz critic, written about 4 books on jazz. But anytime he got into New York City, Leonard and I would go around together to the various places. And I loved his wife too. Marion McPartland took me on several of her radio shows with her, and just a sweetheart. She just died.
By
She
the
was
way,
in-
if you
in her
ever take the
80s.
course, it's available here. It's called the jazz, listening to jazz. I'm teaching that next semester.
Oh, you got Marion?
Cover all of these people that she's talking about. Maybe I'll have you come back.
Oh!
Yeah. Put it in your calendar.
Well, Mark will drive me.
Here's Leonard Feather.
So Marion just died, and she was in her 90s, I think. She always would wear false eyelashes, which I used to wear, but I don't wear any makeup anymore because I just am tired of it. So she had these huge false eyelashes. So anyway, finally reached back to New York City. We were only gone about 6 to 8 months. I don't remember how long. Anyway, it was kind of too long. It was a double-decker bus, by the way, that we went around in. And I had an upper bunk, and the exhaust fumes would come through. It was horrible. And the only way I could go to sleep was sucking on a lemon. The girls taught me that trick. One night we were chased out. Miss Jones, who was head of it, said, "Girls," after we played several numbers, she said, "Pack up, get out, run for the bus." So we didn't know what was happening, so we put things in and ran to the bus, got in the bus. All of a sudden, all the patrons came out and started shaking the bus like this. And we were sure that that was going to go over. What had happened, Miss Jones had an out with the establishment, the owners, and they weren't going to pay Miss Jones enough for the International Sweethearts of Rhythm. So Miss Jones says, "We don't play." But I don't remember how we got out of there. It was in my diary. But that was the only frightening time that we really had on that time. Anyway, so I got back all safe and sound in New York City, and no pay. Miss Jones was ill. She didn't have money to pay us. So I figured, well, it's experience. And my notes disappeared, which was very upsetting to me. Well, in New York City, then I became the guide, went to Rockefeller Center and became a guide there and took people around to all the buildings and ended up on the roof of the building. It was nice. I did that for about 3 years. And it was very, very lovely. It was performing, you know, fun people. And one time, a German was up on the top, the observation deck, and he said, "Look, what is that? Was ist da? Das ist ein Sexhaus. Sexhaus. So we looked, there was a sign, sex house. Big, big red letters down there by Central Park. What used to be Essex House. The ES was out of it. So I had to explain that. So this was a lot of work. I was born with a problem with my leg, my right leg, which didn't stop me any, but I had pain all my life. And this walking, modeling, walking, guiding Rockefeller Center, walking, playing the horn, really blew up my leg, and the pain was almost impossible to stand. At the time, I had met a TV director from NBC, and he directed me to the great Dr. Gerald Pratt, who had a clinic in New York City. And go to him, Nancy, please go to him. So I went to the great Dr. Gerald Pratt, and he made a date with me. He said, well, the reason I saw him was after my initial visit with him, he analyzed my problem, that there were too many, there were no capillaries in this one leg. It's a congenital defect. It's amazing that we don't have more defects. Maybe some of you in this room have some congenital defects that you're not talking about. But this is, the capillaries, the veins feed into the arteries, and then it goes back. No, wait now. The arteries feed into the veins, and then it goes back to the heart and the lung and purified and comes back. So mine was going, in my foot and my legs, was going directly into, which caused this terrific pain. So I had a chance to audition. By this time, music, oh, terrible, just terrible. I couldn't get anywhere with it. So I thought I'd try out for the Copacabana. You've heard of the Copacabana? Mm-hmm. And the showgirls there? Well, they would go from there to Hollywood. It was a fantastic job. So I wrote Dr. Pratt. No, first I called him, and they wouldn't let me get through. The secretary wouldn't let me get through. So I finally insisted on talking to him, and I said, I have a chance to be a showgirl at Copacabana, but I want to know whether my leg would take the rigors of they don't dance much, they just kind of prance around. They'll look pretty. So he wrote a note back to me. Dr. Gerald Pratt wrote a note back to Nancy Hildegarde Brown. I would have to take you to the Copacabana to further analyze whether it'll be advisable for you to be in these forest line. So I said yes, and I made a date with him. And I missed the first date because I met a guy who sold shoes, and he had an airplane. We went out in the airplane. We went out in the airplane, and we were stalled. We were what's it called when you come down?
It's a stall.
We didn't crash. We came down in a field. So we had to come back to New York City by train, and I missed my first date with Dr. Pratt. And Dr. Pratt was angry. And he said, I wrote a note, and he said, I will make a second date with you, but please don't do this again. And no more airplanes. So we went out, and he took me to the Copacabana, and by God, I fell in love with him, and he fell in love with me. Right there at the Copa. He was wonderful. Just everything you'd ever want. Anyway, he was a widower with 3 teenage children. I said, well, he better marry me, but he didn't. And so I waited 5 years. In the meantime, I went back to Columbia University, got my degree in psychology. I said, if I can't marry you, I'm going to stand next to you and operate. So I want to go to medical school. I mean, the workings of the brain. So he got me into medical school in Philadelphia. The minute he got me into medical school, he proposed, gave me a big diamond ring. I went around medical school, look, you know, in anatomy, trying to get that junk with this big diamond ring. I guess they figured that Nancy's not too serious about becoming a doctor. And I wasn't after that. After he proposed to me, I wasn't. So I quit medical school after a year. And I worked with Dr. Pratt on the heart-lung machine on the East Coast. And I typed for him. Finally married him. We had a beautiful life. I had a duplex penthouse on 79th and Park Avenue. Across the corner is the Egyptian Embassy. I mean, it's a life. I see the show. What's the show? The show that girl, she's a whore. You know the one? That is a song. Huh? Yeah. Ugly Woman. Pretty Woman. Yeah. Mine would put that movie to shame. I was the naive one. Believe me. You believe me, don't you? Anyway, we used to go on cruises because it's the only way Gerald would get away from the telephone. We went on 28 cruises during my marriage to him. 28 cruises. By the way, I had 2 boys with him, 2 sons. I played with the Doctors Symphony Orchestra in New York City. I got rid of that desire. I also, after the rehearsal of the Doctors Symphony in New York City, I would go to the Red Blazers too and play with Ira.
Sullivan.
No, not. Oh, you know Ira Sullivan?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah. I can't think of his name.
He plays every instrument.
Yeah.
Just as well. He's like, okay, I think he's at home on that instrument.
Yeah.
And then he switches to another one. Like, wait a minute. He sounds like he's at home.
I
on
know,
that
he's
one too.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Can he sing though?
I don't know. I've
Yeah.
never seen.
Well, so Red Blazer 2, I played Dixieland there. And then I played with four big bands. Oh, during one cruise we went to New Orleans. And the women on the people on the ship said, Nancy, take your trumpet. Take your trumpet. I said, oh no, I'm not going to do this. So I took the trumpet, or Gerald did. And he always was carrying that trumpet around, put it into the waiting room, not letting me know, you know, the cloakroom, not letting me know and bringing it out. So I'd have to play with the people. Anyway, they brought the trumpet out, and I played with the Preservation Hall band. You've heard of that. Have you?
Preservation Hall.
In New Orleans. No.
They
See?
haven't heard of it. Yeah.
Anyway, that was an honor. And the drummer turned to me, he said, where did you come from? Anyway, I played with 4 big bands in the area, between New York City and New Jersey. It was only an hour away from New York City, so we had a lot of exchange there with musicians.
We got about 10 minutes or so.
Okay.
Maybe a little less if they want to ask some questions.
So then I became a little more dignified being married, being Mrs. Gerald Pratt. So I became vice chairman of the women's division of the New York Heart Association. And I would talk about the heart-lung machine because I used to work on it with my husband. My husband was the pioneer on the East Coast. Michael DeBakey was the pioneer in the West Coast. In fact, that's the last person that my husband talked to was Michael DeBakey before he died. He died in 1979. Then I threw myself into music. Thank God for music. I threw myself into music. This is why I think it's important, if you're a musician, either be extremely good or have use it as an avocation. Have a good steady job. You'll see in this tape of, I got rid of the piano player there is so fantastic. He was with my group. He absolutely fantastic. But he couldn't get a job, a sustaining job to feed his children. So he was a postman. So what I'm saying, I had Gerald to back. I could go out and do these dilettante things and still, which I would have, in the past I would have said, oh, I would never be a dilettante with music. I want to be the greatest woman trumpet player in the world. When I went into it, there were only 6 known professional women in the world in 1949. And I was one of them. So I wanted to be the greatest. And suitors, I had suitors, as you can imagine, playing, up there, putting myself up there. As though if for sale. So I threw myself into the Universal Jazz Coalition in New York City. And she was a Chinese woman who started everything for women. And used to play Lincoln Center, Damosh Park.
What was her name?
Kobi Narita, C-O-B-I. Narita, N-A-R-I-T-A. And I played jazz at noon. And one time I was playing Chase Manhattan Plaza. This is after Gerald had died. And I moved down to Secret, New Jersey. I met Tony, was my second husband. And he came up to the bandstand with a card and handed it to me, and I said, oh, thank you. He was a representative of Selmer Instruments. And I said, thank you very much. I don't want to buy another instrument. I'm very happy with the trumpet I have. Thank you. Come to find out, he was told by Kobe Narita that I was available. And he was available. He lost his wife. She died. So I called him the next week, and I said, I'm sorry, I really fluffed you off. So he took me, our first date was the World Trade Center. And that was the first building that was run into by the airplane. That was, then married Tony. He had a home in Montserrat, West Indies, and a home in Woodcliff Lake. So we sold my home in Secret, New Jersey. I mean, real estate coming out of my ears here. Down in Montserrat, I would play with Rastafarians, and it was really a pickup job there. It was, finally I found a fellow that could play this organ that would do everything, but shine shoes, drums, everything. And we had a group that we did a lot of work there. I tell you, women have to really prove themselves. Even then, but much so now. I don't see the old boys, Mark, using many women. They don't, they just don't. Remember with Jane, I have to talk her up? They just don't think, they think men. Is that right, Tom?
I think so still.
Yep, it's so.
Changing. It's changing.
So it's a grind. And fortunately, I have been able to lead all of my groups. I've been the leader. So that's really the only way you can do it, is you become the leader. And there are a lot of women's groups that are around, big bands, not a lot. There are a couple in New York, but they don't last long. I don't know.
Diva's been around quite a while.
Who?
Diva. This group called Diva. It's all
Oh,
women
yes.
orchestra.
Well, I haven't been in New York for a while, so. Also, there are jealousies. cards. I used to give my card out to the musicians. And one wife found it in his pocket. And Nancy Hildegarde, trumpetress. No? So she approached her husband, ready for divorce. She even came over to my house, fire and brimstone. Gosh, so mad. So I finally told her I was very happy the way I was. I just lost my husband and was remarried, and I was very, very happy. And so there are a lot of jealousies. And I was 10 years, we moved here to, 30 years ago we moved here to, no, 20 years ago we moved here to Rockport from Seagirt, New Jersey. And I was with Captain Carlos. Have you heard of Captain Carlos? In Gloucester?
It's a restaurant.
I was with them for 10 years because it was my band. And I do the hiring. And then Mark came into the thing. And finally I got tired. I said, Mark, you take over getting the gig. It'll be your quartet. So Mark gets the personnel now. And I like the 3 years that I've been at Chianti's in Beverly so much because people sit on their vans, eat first, have their lunch, dinner, and then sit there and drink their drinks and listen to us. We're up on a stage, spotlights, big show business, right, Mark? Mark gets a little nervous. No, he's fantastic. I couldn't ask for a better sax player. And then if we have, last week, can I tell them who we had? Marshall Wood, who plays bass with Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett. And he was on the Emmys, Oscars, a couple of weeks ago. And he played with us. And he's going to play with us again when he returns from Europe with Lady Gaga. And the drummer we have, which we love, is Jim Gwynn, who plays with the Boston Pops Orchestra. And love him. So we've got a really tight group now. And Mark, and then of course Jack Sr. on piano. He's been with us 10 years. So that's the whole, I didn't miss anybody today. So Nancy Hildegarde.
So Nancy, we're gonna wrap it up.
That's it?
I'm gonna have them
one more
ask
thing.
some questions after you're done.
Did I tell you that I didn't get paid? I didn't get paid for the International Sweethearts of Rhythm.
Did they tell you they were gonna pay you?
Oh yeah, of course.
Send them a bill.
Yeah, no, but I've had a lifetime of guilt complex for not practicing. Every morning I wake up, when am I going to practice? When am I going to practice? And if I don't practice by the end of the day, I have a guilt complex. So I've been sleeping.
I gave you an Armids book.
You did.
Are you going to practice on
80, I have been. 88 years old in 2 weeks. And I've been 80 years guilt complex. So that's what you have to live with if you don't practice regularly. And I hate to practice. So, and also music helped me after the death of both of my husbands. And my kids, my 2 boys in their 50s now, are pretty proud of me. It's nice. Don't you think, Mark? They're pretty proud of me for doing this. And I gave Mark my phone number, the phone numbers of my sons, in case I succumb on the bandstand. Okay, that's it. That's it. I could have keep you here for 5 hours telling you about my life.
Yeah, no, that was fantastic. Thank you. Conversation. Let's take 5 minutes and ask a couple of questions or comments and whatever. Raise your hand.
Anybody?
Please. Oh, good.
Yes.
Were you first like more passionate in singing or trumpet playing? Because I know you did both.
But I didn't start singing until I was with the big bands. then I knew that I would raise my price if I sang.
Mhm.
So I started singing in the car, going to the gigs, and it was bad, bad. But I was in tune. But still, you can hear my voice. I mean, it's not, nothing like that. It's a low voice. But I get along, don't I?
You sure does.
And it's getting better all the time.
Anybody else?
And by the time I die, I'm going to be on Gabriel's, I'm going to sit on his right knee. He's got place for me on his right knee. We're going to play duets together.
Comments?
Any more?
Yeah.
Especially the ones that are in music. Have I discouraged you at all?
Jeff had something over here.
What was your most, if you had to choose one, your most memorable concert experience?
What was the
Memorable concert experiences.
Your most memorable concert or most memorable concert experience?
Oh golly, there were so many. I mean, that's why doing this has taken me 3 days. Really, morning, noon, and night I've been working on this, and there've been so many. I just couldn't pair them out. One that comes to mind, right? We were doing a summer outdoor with one of the big bands. I think it was Harry Hurley's big band. Harry Hurley. And there were 18, and I came up front. He always starred me. All the guys starred me. I'd come up front and play. And I came up front, and I didn't have my mute. So you needed wah-wah mute. I wanted it for Bill Bailey. Womp, 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 you know, that sort of thing. So one of the guys handed me their old-fashioned glass. So I took it, glass like this, very sturdily built. I mean, so I started, all of a sudden, got to the high note, smithereens all over the place, glass everywhere, everywhere. I kept right on playing with my hand. That immediately came to mind. Also, one more about this mute. I use a plunger. So in New Orleans, before I played with the Preservation Hall Band, I went in to get Dr. Pratt and I went in to get a plunger. And the band came up with it, and I said, oh yeah, this is fine, thank you. We'll take this. And we started out the door, we paid another. It came, just a minute, you forgot the stick.
For the toilet.
Oh, we don't need the stick. We don't need the stick. His mouth dropped to the floor. I'm sure he's wondering today, what were they doing?
Well, Nancy, you have a birthday next week. And,
Yes.
And I just found out that Ultimus has a birthday today.
Oh!
So you're birthday sisters, and we'd like to sing you happy birthday. And then downstairs, I have a treat for you.
Oh!
You're gonna go down there. It's about 10:20, so we have a little time. If you have to rush up to class, that's fine. But please join us. We have a table put aside and downstairs and under the stairs of the calf, and you got a cake out there.
You've been working.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
George,
Yeah.
sweet.
So how about a round of happy birthday? Ready?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear
Nancy and
Nancy.
Ultimus.
Happy birthday to you.
And many more.
Yes.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Mark again to get Nancy and